Parks and Trails. So today's presentation, we're going to be giving a brief general overview of the New York State Park and Trail Partnership Grant Program, what it is, what it can fund, who can apply. For those of you who have applied and or have been recipients of the grants in the past, the next workshop next Thursday, August 18th, that is covering the expansion of the grant program, that might be more relevant for you. This is a beginner's workshop on the grants. So just a quick agenda. I want to give you an overview of what you can expect today. So we're hoping to do a 20 to 30-minute presentation with a question and answer session at the end. We're going to go over the background about the grants, who is eligible to apply. We're going to dive into some categories and examples of past projects from each category. And we're going to talk about what to look out for next, including where to find resources, future workshops that are available to you, and when to apply, some next steps. So before we get started, I just want to do some quick housekeeping, some rules here. So in order to foster an enjoyable experience for everyone, we're going to ask all participants to remain muted and add any and all questions you have to the chat. These questions will be answered during the question and answer session at the end if we don't already cover them during the presentation. And just so you know, a recording of this workshop will be available after. I'm sure you saw that message that said it's being recorded, so we will send that out to everyone who's here today, as well as these slides. So don't worry about frantically taking notes. We will send that information to you afterwards. If you feel so inclined, let us know who you are. Put your name in the chat, what organization you're with, yeah, and what part of the state you're in. That would be good to see who's on the call today. Speaking of who's on the call, doing the presentation today is myself, Shayna Hogan, Parks Program Coordinator. I also have with me Will Cote, the Parks Program Director, and Jonathan Duda, our grants coordinator. He is our main point of contact on these grants. You'll be hearing a lot from him if you're moving forward with applying this year. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I just want to go a little bit about Parks and Trails New York. So we are a nonprofit organization founded in 1985 to advocate for the New York State park system. Our mission has expanded beyond New York State parks, though working to strengthen friends groups has remained a central part of our work over the past 30 years. So a little bit of background about the grants program. The Park and Trail Partnership Grant is a competitive matching grants program funded by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund. It is coordinated, administered, and evaluated by PTNY in cooperation with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. So prior to 2015, many New York State parks and historic sites faced a heavy backlog of projects. Additionally, there were many dedicated groups throughout the system, friends groups, who had the desire and people to take on some of these projects, but simply did not have the funds. So Parks and Trails New York recognized this need, went across the street to our legislators in Albany to advocate for the development of a program to get money for these groups. So the first round began in 2015 at $500,000, but was limited to only friends groups of New York State parks and historic sites. We had an overwhelming amount of applications, but with limited funding. And since then, eligibility has expanded to friends and volunteer groups of DEC public lands, and the awards have doubled to $1 million, and the match expected from applicants dropped to 10%. So in its first 7 rounds, the PTPG has funded 167 projects with over 4.5 million awarded, matched by over 2 million in private funding. And this year's state budget included an 8th round allocating 2 million to the program. So in this past round, the funding available has doubled, which is, we'll be talking a lot more about that in our next workshop next week. So right now I'm going to turn it over to John to talk a bit more about who is eligible to apply.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm sure hearing Shayna talk about these figures and all these amounts, it's probably pretty exciting, but before you all get too excited, what I'm here to tell you is can you even apply? And to make sure, that's the first thing for any grant in general, is are you eligible? And looking through the chat, and already I'm seeing the organizations in there. For the most part, it looks like most of them are all eligible, but let me go into a little bit more detail in terms of the eligibility. This grant program, it's open to organizations whose mission includes the preservation, stewardship, interpretation, environmental education, maintenance, and/or promotion of a New York State park, a state trail, historic site, or public land under the jurisdiction of either New York State Parks or the Department of Environmental Conservation. So a few factors to keep in mind is that an applicant must be a registered charity within the New York State Attorney General's office and have submitted their Char 500 410 annual financial report. The second component of eligibility is that an applicant must be classified by the IRS as a 501c3 tax exempt organization, or have a memorandum of understanding with a 501c3 organization to act as their fiscal agent. So if you don't have your 501c3 status, you can get a 501c3 organization to be your fiscal agent. You must also be in good standing under a current agreement applicable to the grant request with New York State Parks or with the DEC, or have received a letter of intent to enter into such an agreement. So we understand some of these agreements can take a little time. So as long as you have that letter of intent, or if it's being renewed, that is okay. And an applicant must have, as part of its mission and activities, the support of New York State Parks or that DEC facility. So with that said, unfortunately, municipalities, organizations working in collaboration with a town, a city, county, or working in collaboration with a private park, unfortunately are not eligible for this grant. Organizations and projects must be involved directly with a New York State Park, historic site, or with DEC lands. Okay, so what does this fund? These grants were set up as capacity building resources to strengthen organizations, but also to promote, steward, and enhance the special places where they function. Also is to hire staff, as well as to get small friends groups to become established as official nonprofit organizations. So the grant program does have 4 different categories through which you can apply. The first one is the, what you see at the top there, is the Capacity or Organizational Effectiveness Grant. These grants strengthen the capacity and expertise of organizations or a partnership involving more than one such organization. This is in order to aid them in fulfilling their mission and to improve your reach, effectiveness, and impact, such as things such as strategic planning, development of membership programs, can fund board training, increasing the diversity within your organization as well. Also, it can fund things such as website development and technology needs, as well as the hiring of temporary contractors, staff, or temporary interns. The second category, and this is the most popular one, and by far, and more of the kind of hands-on, shovel in the ground type projects is what we like to say. The stewardship and public access grants may be used to assist friends organizations with the stewardship, interpretation, promotion, education, and public access of a New York State park or historic site, DEC public land, or a partnership involving more than one such organization, which significantly enhances the organization's visibility and capacity. So public access or engagement improvements can be things such as interpretive kiosks, new trails with signage, other activities that enhance public enjoyment and access to the public resource. Can also be things such as community and constituency building initiatives and programs that promote outreach or promote public education and recreation, resulting in essentially the greater public support and broader public involvement, especially from new and presently underserved audiences. as well as those which enhance age-friendly recreation opportunities. Also, too, some other projects can be like the development and implementation of public resource marketing plans, especially if undertaken in partnership with local tourism promotion efforts. The third category, and this is the largest, most highly funded one, it's a professional development grants. These are 2-year grants. All the others are 1-year grants. This is the only 2-year grant, and this supports the hiring of permanent staff in order to advance organizations to a higher and more sustainable level of professionalism, fiscal and administrative stability, as well as community outreach in the future, so that in the future they'll be able to sustain it on their own. Professional development grants may be used to support a first staff hire, can do additional staff, upgrade a current position from part-time to full-time, or it can even create a position that's a shared staff position between 2 organizations. These grants are meant to support permanent increases in staffing capacity. So if an organization is interested in hiring just a temporary contractor to perhaps maybe just work on one project, or staff to support the organization's work temporarily, one of those requests would fall under the capacity and organizational effectiveness grants, or even one of the stewardship grants. But the professional development grants are permanent positions that we would like to see sustained once the grant funding does run out after the 2 years. And so the fourth category, this is the smallest, I would say least popular one, and it is the step-up grants. These are for very small organizations to assist them with the administrative and the legal needs in order to secure their 501c3 status. In addition to that, acquiring that status, these costs can also be associated with completing a consultant facilitated organizational assessment and a resulting plan to come out of that assessment. So with all that said, probably wondering, well, yeah, what are some of the past projects that these have awarded? We have just a few out of the 160 plus grants that we've awarded since 2015. So picked a few of them. For example, out in Rochester, the Rochester Inclusive Community Rowing Association, we funded $11,592 for an ADA compliant pathway with environmentally friendly materials that will allow access from their boathouse and the DEC lands to a rowing dock in the Black Creek, right down the pathway. And so wonderful project for, they focus on veterans and those with disabilities. And so that would, of course, yeah, fall under what we call the SPAC category, the stewardship and public access. We also, another type of one is, for example, we did mention interpretive signage. The Friends of Bennington Battlefields, they were awarded $8,500 to design and create interpretive signs dotted throughout the battlefield that incorporates firsthand accounts of the battle and draws from multiple perspectives. So many people kind of collaborated on these panels, and they're now installed. And yeah, I encourage you to pop on over to check them out, because there's not always a guide there. So it's good to have these more passive learning materials on our sites. And then also too, the Little Stony Point Citizens Association, which is just south of Beacon, New York, they were awarded $50,000 to replace an existing storage shed and create new space in order to support volunteer activities at Little Stony Point State Park. The accessory structure provides space for meetings and event planning, as well as support, equipment, materials, and volunteer amenities, plus a covered porch for hikers. And then I've been seeing a lot of photos that they've been submitting. That covered porch has been used as a stage for events that have been occurring throughout the year. So it's a wonderful project that was recently funded. So those were under the stewardship category. Some other projects from some of the other categories include the Friends of Old Croton Aqueduct. They were awarded $24,000 for a capacity building grant to expand successful outreach and community engagement in underserved and diverse communities there in Yonkers, New York. They did so by, this funding helped retain a part-time outreach coordinator to increase awareness about the aqueduct in that section of the city. And it also too helps enhance the capacity of the Friends group. They've already held a couple of events with this new outreach coordinator. So it's a wonderful project that's been moving along. One of the big, I call it the big grants, the professional development grants. One of the positions that has been funded was a first-time executive director at the Stony Kill Foundation. And yeah, it was their first-time executive director and enhancing the set up to enhance programming, operations, and fundraising for the DEC site.
Not during the night.
We also have funded a name change, I guess is what you can say, is part of the capacity building grants that it was initially the Council of Park Friends were awarded $5,000 to legally change their name to the Friends of Clark Reservation and to embark on a membership campaign using promotional materials to grow their membership and help maintain a sustainable income. So yeah, you can see these as well as a whole other complete list of awarded projects on our website, and for all the years, all back through 2015. So yeah, we encourage you to go check out and get inspired to see what has been funded before. And again, I'm always available if you have an idea of a project that you want to run by me. I love talking groups through it, so I'm always available to help, and my contact info will be at the end of the presentation. But for now, what I will do is I will turn it over to Will Cote, who will be telling you where we're going from here, from this workshop.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Yes, where we go from here. Essentially, these are your next steps and some final wrap-up thoughts before we head into any Q&A that might exist. So just a reminder, if you have any questions that have popped into your head, feel free to put those into the chat. Again, you can find that on the bottom part of your screen, and we'll tackle those when we get to the end here. But we're almost there. Just want to send a couple of important reminders. First and foremost, are you eligible? Again, we really want to stress that you must be a 501c3 nonprofit and have a current formal agreement with either the Department of New York State Parks or Department of Environmental Conservation. If you have any concerns or questions about that, please contact us and we can help you sort of review the situation and take some action steps as needed. If you have an idea for a project, also now is the time to talk to your park or site manager and to also talk to your regional directors. This is a partnership program designed not only to increase relations with your community, but also strengthen the relationship and the positive communication between your organization and agency staff. So the idea here is that we really want to ensure that there is a synergy between your organization and the agency to ensure that essentially the public is making the most of the sites that you champion. Looking ahead to a schedule of some upcoming dates and events that would probably be of interest to you. Looking for this 8th round of the grant. So next Thursday, August 18th at 12, we're going to host our second pre-application info workshop. This is really going to be on our expanded Park and Trail Partnership Grant Program for the coming round. We're going to dive into a bit more detail about the increased maximum award amounts, talk about some of the lenses that we are applying to this year's application, particularly around projects involving diversity, equity, and inclusion, accessibility, community partnerships, as well as how this opportunity, this funding opportunity can lend itself towards your group's ideas towards this New York State Parks Centennial Celebration. But as we've been saying, it's a $2 million program now, so this is the opportunity to think big. and we're going to provide you with some ideas to sort of wet your whistle, and also some resources to kind of get the creative juices flowing. Beyond that, the grant application process officially opens on September 15th. Once that happens, we'll be hosting 2 webinars that are open during the application process. The first one is on September 22nd. That's for professional development applicants only. And then another one on October 12th at 1 o'clock and on November 10th at 11. We'll essentially host the same webinar twice. And that's for prospective applicants to kind of go through the entire application process together. And as John always says, to demystify it and make sure that you have whatever you need to put forward a good application. And then, of course, the biggest date to keep in mind is December 9th. That is the deadline when applications are due. Beyond that, the spring of 2023, ideally our target is late May or so. The awards will be announced, and then early summer, not too far after, the first half of your award funds are distributed to you. So those are the dates, the timeline, the cadence of things, if you will, to keep in mind. And of course, if you have any questions about the New York State Park and Trail Partnership Grant, please contact John Duda. This is his confirmation or his information here. He is the Grant Master Supreme. He knows all, sees all, can help all. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And of course, you can always visit us online on our website, which does have quite a wealth of resources and information for you at your fingertips. So with that, John, I think we'll maybe dive into a couple of questions that we've gotten here at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yep. And just to give a little more info, my first answer to the first question was regarding the professional development category. That 150,000 max, yes, that is spread out among the 2 years. And so keep in mind that the professional development grant is also a 20% match. The others are 10%. So with that 20% match, you can figure in what 75,000 a year that should be awarded. What is going to be on top of that. So please, as you're putting your budget together, to think about benefits and things of that sort when coming up with a annual salary for the intended position. And as for the how the funds are divvied up, no, there's no maximum amount at all. It really does depend on the flow of categories. As I had mentioned earlier, the SPAC category just tends to be the most popular, and so therefore most of the funds tend to go fund those projects. Also, some of the larger amounts too. But no, we really don't. When we review them, we really don't have a set amount for each. So it all depends on the application. And yes, regarding a match, matches are 10% for the capacity building grant and the stewardship grant. The 20% for the professional development, and then with the step up grant, that's the smallest grant. That's just a very modest $500. We understand that's very small groups for that application for that grant category. And the question too is, can an organization apply for multiple grants? So for those of you who are on who've asked this question before in the past, I would always I'd say yes, you can always apply for multiple grants. I would always say, but we have a very competitive. This year we do have that double the amount, and out of any year, I would say if you want to go for 2 grants, if your organization has the capacity to write them out, dedicate the time to do so, do it this year. We encourage you. Worst that can happen, if it gets denied, you have your application there still for your project. Speak to me afterwards. We tweak it up, and then next year you can just use that application. Apply again next year. So Yes, the thing though, however, with the different categories is our system only allows you to apply for one category as an organization. Therefore, if you have a stewardship project, start thinking of another project, more of a capacity building to complement that. So that's the really the only limitation, or a professional development grant and a capacity building one. Let's see. Thank you, Jonathan. You're welcome. Do all the grants require some type of dollar and or kind services and match? Yes. Yep, they all do. And these details are all on the website there. The matches are all 10% match, as well as the 20% match for the professional development. 50% of that can be in kind. Therefore, with that 10%, and there is a whole calculator system that we have on there to help you figure it out with a spreadsheet. Yes, 50% must be cash, whether it's from operating funds, from fundraising. You will be required to submit a letter to express and prove essentially that you will have those matching funds in hand. And then in kind is the other 50%, and that can be volunteer labor, services provided, et cetera, things of that sort. Yeah, that's how the match works. And let's see. Okay, so with the professional development webinar, September 25th, which is a Sunday. No, that's not correct. We'll double check that. Yeah, the very first webinar for the grants is a professional development webinar. Double check our website. You'll be getting emails and everything too. We'll be sure. Yeah, that might have been just a mistype. No, we do not host any webinars or anything on the weekends. Monday through Friday, usually mornings or afternoons, and we try to mix it up as best we can.
Yeah, John, that was my fault. I put it on the presentation as the 25th. Will read the 22nd, so I'm pretty positive it's September 22nd.
Oh, good.
The website. That was my, sorry guys.
Yeah, you'll all be seeing these dates plenty, I'm sure. Do keep in mind, everyone, that the professional development, because it is a 2-year grant, there are some extra steps involved. It is a little bit more of a in-depth process because it's 2 years, it's a lot of money. So you will be required first to submit a letter of intent to apply, and we review those. Then we invite you to actually apply for the actual position for the grant. So that first webinar, that's why we have that webinar first. That kind of gets everyone going. You submit the letter of intent. I don't have the date in front of me, but it is on our website. Usually takes us a couple of weeks to review them and then reach out to you. There's also after you do apply, there's also, when we're making our decisions, there is also an interview process, just interview call with you, just to talk a little bit more about the position, about your organization, et cetera. So just keep in mind as you're applying for the professional development grant, is a little bit more of an effort than the other 3 categories. And the next question I see here is, can a match be from a foundation? Yes, it can, as long as the foundation or those matching funds are not state funds. You cannot match state funds with other state funds. So as long as your match is coming from a private foundation, either submit a letter with them. You'll see that in the application, that letter from them that yes, these funds are in hand and are ready to be, available for the project. Let's see, did I miss anything?
The only other question I see in here, John, and you might have touched on this during your presentation, but from Kathleen, is asking what metrics is PTNY most interested in? Volunteer growth, profit? I'm assuming this applies to when groups are writing a grant. What are we looking for from their applications?
Yeah, that's a mighty good question. Yeah. Really, the purpose of these grants, yes, they are capacity building for the organization. So under the capacity building ones, what what is going to help your organization really grow? Is there a are you facing any issues at the moment, any struggling somehow that you have an idea that this, whether it be bumping your website up or your membership campaign or creating a fundraising plan for the future, as long as you can express that in the narrative, that this will make a significant impact on the organization. Whereas programs such as, or projects such as more of the kind of, I said it earlier, shovel in the ground, more of those physical projects. How will this bring new audience, whether new audiences, more diverse audiences to the site, or to help continue to promote that site, or just the experience for visitors of whether it's a park or historic site? Certainly things such as, we do take into consideration if there is like maybe a trail or a building that there's a safety issue. Those are usually they're important components to a project that usually gonna raise our eyebrows to consider. Things of that sort. Again, give me a call. I love discussing some of these. I'm very open and honest with applicants. If there's something that I'll just, I like to look at it through the eyes of our reviewers. We do have, our staff reviews. We do have board members who review these applications as well. It's a whole team of us. And just over the years, I've kind of, know the red flags that arise, as well as the really engaging and attractive applications. And so very open to let you know if it's something that just will not fly, or if there is something that you can kind of turn. I'll let you know, and we can work with it. Anything else? Okay, if not, then what we encourage you to do is you can, of course, attend the next workshop, as Will had mentioned, and then we do have, of course, the post-application opening workshops. Those are the very in detail software that the program that you'll be using. All of the really technical stuff to help you through that process. That's what you have to look forward to then. But the next one coming up next week is really to get you thinking, start speaking with your park managers, with the regional directors, get that flow going, so that when that application process opens up, boom, you can just start writing away. And again, as we had mentioned, you do have it's a good amount of time. You do have until the first week of December, and I encourage you to submit it well before then, just so that you're not there at midnight with the finger over the button waiting to click. Reach out to me. I do see one last question here. Does the application need to be submitted in connection with the park, or can it be submitted just on behalf of the nonprofit? It definitely has to have a connection to the park. One of the required documents that you'll be asked to upload is a letter from the state agency supporting, or not, let's hope supporting the project. That is a requirement, and we do look at those very thoroughly to be sure that it does have the thumbs up from the park site manager. That's one of the key aspects of this grant program too. It's a partnership program. Yes, partnership with community groups, but partnership with the state agency and the nonprofit organization, and just helping that communications to flow, strengthening that relationship. And you'll see, you'll be very working hand in hand with the park staff, and we highly highly encourage you to do so, and we require it. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much. And again, yep, reach out to me with any questions, and hope to see some of you next week as well. Enjoy your day. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.